Welcome back to Gene and Roger Talk Movies. Amazingly enough, we are here to talk about X. Let me hit you with this.
Nice. Little sound effects, Roger.
Yeah, look at that, our little X sound effect. So came out in March 18th, 2022. We've done the sequel/prequel to this already, Pearl, which we both loved. You all know, if you've been listening, that I'm down with X, but let's see what Eugene has to say about this. Where are you at with X?
The movie X. I actually watched it with my wife last night. You know, it's available on Prime. And I just have to say, this movie, it's colorful. It's like the cinematography is pretty good. You know, you can tell that they really went out of the way to kind of make this picture scenically, vibrant. You know, it's funny. And it is a horror movie, and it's not horror comedy, but there are definitely comedic elements in this thing, but there are also some super heavy themes running it through this movie. So I would say for the movie X, I love this movie.
Yes.
I love this movie. Yes, absolutely.
Well, and a little backstory, right? Gene was incredibly hesitant to watch this one. I've been trying to get him to watch this for, probably since episode 1 of our little podcast.
Right. A little put off by it's X, And so they're shooting a porn movie. And so, I mean, of course, they show some things, but it's not overly the top.
Your wife was watching it. If she
My
made
wife
it
was
through
watching
to the end,
it.
it's okay.
Yeah, and we didn't fast forward any scenes. The kids were asleep. So. But would I show it with my sons? No, I wouldn't. No, it's definitely
it's
adult.
R-rated. Yeah,
it's an adult movie for sure. Yeah.
But the basic premise, just like Eugene said, is a group of younger people are heading out to film a porno. It's set in 1979, so the porn industry was just kind of becoming a really big time deal here, and they decide they're going to go out and rent this farmhouse piece of property.
Yeah, this guy named Wayne. He's like a Matthew McConaughey wannabe kind of guy,
right?
Which is funny because he's from Texas. So he somehow they work at some place called Bayou Burlesque, which is one of the settings for the movie, because it shows them coming out of the Bayou Burlesque, and there's a mural there, and it shows like the Coppertone picture where there's a dog pulling at the underwear of a little girl, and it shows her tan lines. This shows an alligator kind of doing the same thing, but with an adult, person. So. And it's a super colorful mural, and it just kind of sets the tone for the whole movie. So, this movie's super artistic. About halfway through, it's like, Anita, this movie's like it's like a well-written poem. Because in poems you carefully construct your language, you put it all in the right place. You can tell that the guys who put this movie together, they really paid attention to scene changes. Like there was this one scene change, and my wife and I marked about it, is that. And towards the beginning of the movie, like they make the scene change, and for like 2 seconds, you're looking at the head of a black chicken. And it's just kind of funny, and it's just like, but it fits, and it's just really cool. It's super artistic. It's thoughtful. You can tell they really spent some time, planning this thing out. So, it works.
Well, it's an A24 movie.
It is an A24.
You are expecting it to be a little bit more on the artistic side.
Yep.
And it certainly is. You definitely get the long panoramic shots, like when they're walking towards the outhouse building that they're going to be renting. And
right. Yeah. They rent. There's like a big farmhouse. That's, of course, old people are there.
Extremely old people.
Extremely old. Right. Pearl and her husband are the old people. The Pearl from the Pearl prequel. Yeah. And they have a guest house, which is off in the distance, and they rented that guest house. So, big panoramic shots. So.
Yep. And then, of course, the first half of the movie is kind of setting that all up, and they're filming their porno, and then the second half devolves into a massive killing.
Right. Yeah, it starts off kind of like the police arrive the morning after the killings, and so then you see kind of the results, their bodies, and there's an axe and there's blood everywhere. They go into a dark, dungy basement. The cops are aghast. And then it says 24 hours earlier. So the movie really takes place in the span of just one day.
Right. And we have to point out also that this movie has two of America's sweethearts in it.
According to Roger.
Mia Goth and, of course, Jenna Ortega. So you can't go wrong with that.
I thought you said Jenna Ortega. Well, of course, we're going to all kinds about the spoilers here. But I thought Jenny Ortega survived Lorraine in the movie. But
she absolutely does not.
No, she does not survive.
And her death sequence is awesome.
Yeah, she comes out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and so you basically have the old couple who have a lot of pent-up emotions themselves, and they end up not appreciating what's going on their farm property.
Right. There's again, in the second half we start getting into the heavy themes of this movie, and there's a big heavy theme of religious fundamentalism, and the whole. I don't know. That's a topic unto itself, but for this movie, the theme of that seems to be of judgment. Is that if you're a Christian, you have permission to judge others. Again, I'm not going to, that's not broad statement about all Christianity, but for this movie, the theme is that, you call yourself a Christian, that means you can judge other people. And these old people, they find out what the young crew is doing, Maxine Wayne, Bobby Lynn Jackson, RJ, Lorraine, they find out what they're doing, and they are like, no, that's not happening. Yeah, but they get into deeper themes of beauty, old age.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of the idea of because the Bible talks about trials, going through trials kind of can refine your character. But these young people, they just want to go straight to the riches. So that's the motivation behind the porn. They just think that, especially the guy Wayne, he's the driving force behind all this, and he thinks that and actually the actresses too.
Yeah, Mia Goth's character especially.
Yeah, Maxine, the preacher's daughter. Yeah, and Bobby Lynn. Yeah, they just want to get rich quick, and so they kind of want to avoid this trials that kind of can refine you. They just want to go straight to the riches. Which is I think we've all been there for sure. But I think that's a theme of this movie too, is that the kind of the get rich quick kind of thing motivates them to shoot their movie.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and I think it also motivated the Pearl,
yes,
the old lady, because I think when she was younger, she wanted to be a dancer, and one of the lines at the beginning was life sometimes doesn't treat you the way you want or expect, and then she has regret. Her quote unquote get rich schemes didn't work out, so she has all this regret, and this regret has led to serious mental illness.
Right. Well, and she even tells the Maxine character that you're going to end up like me.
Right, she does.
And there's a lot of really one of the things I really like about this movie too is Ty West is the director, and he is okay with making you kind of feel uncomfortable, because there are some scenes where the Pearl character, which is also Mia Goth, by the way, is touching the Maxine character,
right,
and sleeping, sneaking into her bed and sleeping with her, and it's really makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's good horror. Good horror should make you feel uncomfortable, and it definitely does. And that's one of the themes of this movie, is that. Yeah, and I appreciate this movie because nobody ever talks about this, but it's just right there in front of us. It's just the whole idea of beauty and who's allowed to do what, and I don't know, our Puritan culture that we live in. We kind of even can't talk about these things. And it's a way because our Christian background, kind of says we shouldn't talk about these things. But, it's just but the movie just delves into it, because it's young people, having sex. I'm just going to say young people having sex is viewed as normal and attractive and desirable. But yet there's a scene where Pearl and her husband are having sex, and Maxine she's hiding from them because she knows by this point that they're killers and they've killed other members of her party.
Yep.
So she's under the bed, hiding from them, trying to figure out how to live, and the old couple are having sex above them, and yeah, to Ty West's credit, he just shows them.
Yeah.
But it's heavy though, because, and even me watching it, the young people having sex is, you just got it. It's attractive, it's what we expect. But then seeing the old people have sex is kind of, yeah, it's not that. In a way, it's repellent, and
Yes.
should it be, right? Because it's
Right, they're
Right.
a long-term married couple.
long-term married
and,
couple.
It is
and
a normal thing that will happen.
what normal married
You
couples
normally don't witness that.
right, things married couples should be doing. But yeah, they're old and they're
And really old.
really old.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's something I think we don't talk about. And this movie's shot from like the perspective of the younger generation. So maybe the younger generation. And it's also a theme of like of beauty versus old age. It's that I think in a way, like we're as human beings, we're condemned to love beauty. I mean, there's beauty all around us, right? There's in nature, like animals, especially like infant animals, our own babies that we have. There's just We're attracted to this, but then when we get old, we feel different.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be like that.
Well, but it is, Gene.
I know, but it just seems like it just shouldn't be. Like we should be more, as humans, more accepting, more tolerant, and of course, a lot of us are. But I think it is a theme in our society and in society in general, and we glorify beauty, and we see it everywhere. I mean, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We're all about glorifying the young and the attractive. Yeah, and
Yep.
so this movie just gets right at that.
Yep,
Gets
and
right
then
at
it gets right into the gore too,
Right
where
into
the
the
old
gore,
people
yeah.
are on a killing spree.
And I love this movie. It kind of makes a little. Roger, please talk. I'm sure I missed a lot of these things, but it makes homage to the Texas Chainsaw
Oh, yeah.
Massacre, which it's loosely based. I think I noticed that at the beginning, there's just like they're in traffic. Wayne and his cohort, they're in a van. Well, first of all, they're in a van,
Yep.
right? And then there's a traffic jam, and the traffic jam is this big red semi truck. This cow. Well, it's a red truck. Remember the
You're
guy?
right, the
It's a
end
big
of
red truck.
Chainsaw and-
Yeah, and right, and so
Yeah, they definitely have some shot Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the scene in the van where the camera's placed right at the front of the van shooting back. That's directly out of the Chainsaw Massacre setups. And just they have a skull laying on the side of the road. In Chainsaw Massacre, it was an armadillo, but this one there's a skull as they drive by. Walking across the field is very Texas Chainsaw.
The house in itself, it's a white house,
Yeah.
big white house kind of on a hill. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is, talking about the prequel Pearl, that was kind of set in World War I era, and so it had that look. And then this one set in the end of the 70s has that look of a 70s film.
Yeah,
so
it
it's
does.
got
It's
that
kinda grainy.
feel and the graininess, and it just really, Ty West has done a masterful job of setting these films in the time frame and making the film itself look like it was shot in the time frame, and which is why I'm really looking forward to seeing Maxine when it comes out.
The survivor of this movie.
Yeah, because this will be, okay, what is Mia Goth up to now?
Right.
Yep. Because she is, there's this, just like Gene said, there's this religious thematic element running all throughout this film. For whatever reasons, and I don't understand this town at all, but anyone who has a TV on, it's this same preacher guy.
Yeah, the same preacher guy is blaring all the time.
Apparently, he's on 24/7, apparently, but turns out that person, that preacher, is the father of the Maxine character.
Right, and towards the end of the movie, the father is lamenting on screen
Mm-hmm.
about the evilness and the perverseness of our society, and it's too secular, and he shows actually a picture of his wife, of his daughter,
Mm-hmm.
on screen. It's like, they took my daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's had enough of him because
Yes.
nobody took, if anything, he pushed her away really with
Of
his
course.
over the topness. But
And Maxine's getting a little messed up because at the beginning of the movie, it shows her she's doing a lot of coke.
yep, she does coke throughout the film. Yes.
It's just, and even the Wayne says, why don't you moderate it a little bit? Why don't you slow down a little bit?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so Wayne, her little buddy, is even just like, oh, you're over the top here.
Well, and that was, again, late 70s and into the 80s, of course, when cocaine really exploded.
Right.
So, again, fitting perfectly in with what was going on there. And also, I think cocaine is a drug that, for the Maxine character anyway, it was reinforcing her, I'm going to be famous and everybody's
Yeah.
going to know me. And part of that, of course, was, this cocaine just rushing through your system all the time, telling
Yeah.
you how great you are. And
Yeah,
this
kind
and
of
that.
fueling her kind of unrealistic.
And the other interesting thing about this film, too, especially when you're talking about pornographers, the Wayne character is kind of running the show with this porn shoot. And there's the Jenna Ortega character is clearly shown as like this innocent and kind of naive. The only reason she's on this film set
Lorraine.
is she is the sound girl,
Yeah,
so she's
the
holding the
girlfriend
mic.
of RJ.
The
which is
girlfriend of
photographer.
of RJ, who's the one who's shooting it, and of course RJ is like, I'm going to make this a really artistic porno.
Yeah, it's
and
an
blah, 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 blah,
avant-garde.
blah. But then as the film progresses along, Jenna Ortega has this nice interaction with Wayne and the rest of the group, and they are talking about, she's not understanding why they could do this. You're not in love with each other, and
Right.
but
Like, Wayne,
you're-
how do you feel about your girlfriend,
Right.
sleeping with that guy?
But then at the end of that discussion, she decides, well, I want to do a scene.
Yeah, and the boyfriend, RJ, is not happy.
No, and then he and Wayne have this conversation where RJ is like, well, Jenna Ortega is not like these other girls.
Yes.
And of course, he's talking to Wayne, who the Mia Goth character is his quote unquote fiance, and he's like, "What are you saying there, buddy?"
I know, you're talking.
know.
You're like, but then he, like RJ, mirrors that fundamentalist preacher
Mm-hmm.
judgment idea that has been preaching over the airwaves by this guy, So it's like, it's interesting. He's a member of their group, but he is mirroring that attitude that is outside of their group.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
but then I also like how it kind of shows how a naive person can get easily seduced into, now I'm shooting a porn film, right? That Wayne character, he is not a good guy.
No, he's not.
And, he's brought this Maxine person in, and the Brittany Snow character, she's also in this film.
Bobby Lynn.
Bobby Lynn, and he's kind of creating this group of people that are going to kind of use their bodies to help him make money, is really
Yeah.
at the end of the day what it is. And he was more than happy when the Jenna Ortega character was like,
Oh yeah.
I'll do a scene for you.
Oh yeah, because it's a new face.
Mhm.
Yeah, they put some makeup
Yeah.
on her, and yeah.
So I
She
think
has a
this
shot.
this movie is got a lot to say, and it's smart the way it says it, because it's all in line with the characters. Because the Jenna Ortega character was more like, well, I can empower myself as a woman to make these decisions.
Mhm.
But it's like, well, you might want to think a little bit more about those decisions.
Yeah. It's just when you're surrounded by people, and it's again, I think it goes back to the whole idea of beauty, because right before Lorraine makes that decision to do the shot, they're all sitting around, and they're just hanging out. At the end of the day, they're eating a little dinner, the sandwiches on Wonder Bread of all things, and Jackson, who's he is really good at playing the guitar. He starts playing a song, and then Bobby Lynn sings a Fleetwood Mac song from the 70s.
Mhm.
And she sings it remarkably well, and she sings the whole song.
And that was really Brittany Snow singing that. Too,
Yeah. So this Fleetwood Mac song, Roger, you got to help me out. What was the name of the song?
I don't know the name of the song. Gene, it's me, baby. I only know heavy metal.
Yeah, you're the Slayer guy.
You know.
But anyway, it was great, and I think in a way, them singing that song and doing so well is beauty unto itself, And then Lorraine, she wants to participate in that. So she gets kind of seduced by that.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it goes to the whole beauty and the colorfulness of this whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets up the contrast between the beauty of nature and the beauty of youth versus the opposite side is just the ugliness of old age and maybe the judgment maybe we should have against older people. And I think it brings out the ideas that. Like this movie, for sure has a lot of regret. These old people have regret.
Mm-hmm.
But does it mean that all old people are regretful? I think this movie kind of says that. Yeah, I think this movie says that. It's like if you're old, you have regret. But is that true? I don't know. Is it?
Well, I think, we're not exactly young. Are there things throughout our life that we have a regret about? And I'm sure the answer is probably yes. But were those regrets things that altered our life to such a place that we weren't happy with our life, I think is when it gets into it. And I don't think Pearl and her husband are in a place of happiness at this time. And, of course, you had the fortune to actually see Pearl before you saw X.
Yeah, I saw it in reverse order.
Yeah, and so, and actually I'm thinking that's the best way to see these films now because so much of what's in Pearl is right there in X as well. I think Ty West did a really good job.
He ties them together well.
Really well, and just the fact that even something as simple as there's an alligator in that pond, right?
Which again goes back to the comedy element because Maxine is swimming in this pond and they show a shot of the head of an alligator. And you know what's coming. You just know it, and it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat how those two movies are so connected. Yeah. And I would actually recommend if you haven't seen X, watch Pearl first because it really does set up. It's one of the few prequels I've seen where it actually has a real purpose for being because it really sets up the Pearl character. Because in X, you only know the Pearl character as this creepy old woman who starts killing people.
Super creepy. Yeah. Her first victim is RJ, which kind of reminds me, it's a little bit of a side, but as a family, one of our favorite animated movies is called Over the Hedge. And the lead character is this squirrel, right? Voiced by Bruce Willis. And what's his name? RJ. So as soon as we heard the movie, RJ is as the photographer is like, oh man, that's from Over the Hedge.
And did the RJ character in Over the Hedge meet his demise at the hands of some homicidal old woman?
No. Okay. RJ actually survives. However, RJ has to fight off this homicidal bear.
Okay.
So the bear wants to get him. And so that kind of drives the whole movie. But RJ survives.
Okay. In this one, RJ does not survive.
RJ does not survive.
It is the first really brutal death scene, and Ty West does not hold back.
No, it does not at all.
And so if you want the gore, it's definitely in here.
Yep. Again, and the gore starts even with, I talked a little bit about the truck hitting the cow. Mm-hmm. And the cow's guts are all over the place. Yeah.
Well, and they do a nice close-up of the van driving through all that, too.
Yeah, exactly. The van drives over some of the guts, and the guts splatter.
Yeah, and these characters meet horrible demises.
Yeah, and Pearl herself is, she meets her demise by the wheel of a truck.
Yep,
which goes back to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because the survivor in that one, Sally, escapes in a pickup truck. And so how does Maxine escape in this movie? In a pickup truck.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Gene, anything more to say about X?
Yeah, it's really good. It's one of those movies I think you could watch over, which I think is a defining quality of a great film, or a film that just works for you, and so. But again, super super heavy themes going on through here, again, the contrast of beauty and old age, and how do we fit all into that? That religious fundamentalism themes going on out there. So, and it is funny. One of the funniest lines of the movie was at the very, very end. We meet the cops again who had met at the beginning of the movie. And one of the deputies comes up and with a film camera, and it's like, well, Sheriff, obviously they were shooting some movie here. What do you think is on this thing? And the sheriff comes back to them saying, well, they were shooting some damn horror movie.
Mm-hmm. He says it a little more aggressively than that.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah, and which is really funny because they were shooting a porno, but this movie X is a horror movie.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a great ending for the film, for sure.
Great ending.
Yeah, I again am so overjoyed because it has been a little bit of a chore to convince Gene to finally sit down and watch this movie. And to hear him really like it just makes me very happy today.
Well, I'm glad you're happy. Yeah, it's a definite recommendation. Again, it's very adult. It's for adults.
Oh yeah,
definitely be in mind of that. So
yeah,
keep your kids away from this.
Yeah,
the heavy two themes going on here.
Yeah, if anything, your kids could maybe watch the last half hour when everyone's getting killed.
I would say even skip that, but it's good conversations to have, with your youth. It's just very adult things. Prepare them for adulthood. It's like, don't get too wrapped into this youthful culture that we live in.
Right.
Try to keep a good, healthy perspective.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Definitely highly recommended is X. It's yet another winner from A24. Of course, you can't go wrong with Mia Goth and Jenna Ortega in your film. And I think, when Maxine comes out to the theater, we should probably go check it out at the theater.
I will check it out.
And do
that.
Do
you have a release date?
No, they don't have one yet. It's in post-production still, but it's got to be pretty soon because they're done filming that thing. So
yeah, probably the strike maybe slow things down a bit.
It's possible. Who knows? But Gene, any idea what we're doing next?
That we have no idea.
So Godzilla -1 is currently playing.
I heard reviews about this. It said it's a horror movie with a heart.
Oh, well, I ain't got no time for that. I just need the horror movie part.
Yeah, that's what I heard. So we could definitely do that.
Well, I am trying to see if I can fit that movie into my schedule because I want to see it on the IMAX screen for sure.
Right.
But, if we can somehow magically do that, I'd love to do that because, of course, I love Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla works on the big screen.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So why don't we pencil that in for next?
We'll try to figure that one out. I mean, obviously, it's us. Something will happen next week, whether it's Godzilla -1 or Evil Dead 2 or some
maybe we'll
random
do
thing.
some movie off Shudder. Who knows?
Right, exactly. So great. Thanks for tuning in. Check out X if you've got the time.
Yeah, Pearl first, though.
Yeah, I think that's the smart way to do that, maybe, is watch Pearl first because you can see so many callbacks in X to Pearl, even the shushing thing that Maxine and Pearl both do.
Yeah.
It's just really great. So we will catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.